All right, well, Governor Romney isn't the only one who thinks this might go higher at the IRS than the IRS. Apparently, those who have been polled on CBS News, New York Times, tend to think that when this was involved with the conservative groups alone, whether it was the Obama administration, 44%, only the IRS, 40%. Byron York, Sabrina Schaeffer. Obviously, not everyone is buying the notion, Byron, this stops at just the IRS's door. What do you think?
Not at all. And in that same CBS poll, large majority said that they thought the motivation of the IRS was political. So that's not good news for the administration either. I think most people in their regular lives, when they look at policies that people in their office are working on, they think, well, these are set by the people above, the bosses. And so that's why the the scandal points to Washington. And then when you get there, you ask questions about the administration.
Sabrina?
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with Byron that I think that the people do realize that this is politically motivated, in part because we're dealing with political organizations. But one part of that poll did give me pause, which is the partisan divide. And if you look, 65% of Democrats continue to think that the IRS acted independently. I'm not sure exactly what that means, considering the IRS is part of the executive branch. It gets its orders from the White House at some level. But that sort of concerns me that there is some hesitation among the public that the White House is to blame for this.
You know, Byron, I was talking to Governor Romney, and it is a legitimate point that if you have so many donors and conservative groups distracted with dealing with the IRS and getting approval for various exemptions from the IRS, to say nothing of donors being audited and the like, the more time they spend dealing with that, the less time they have to be helping you, right?
Well, that's exactly what some Democratic strategists and office holders wanted in 2008. I mean, we have the man who later became the White House counsel, a top Democratic lawyer, wanting exactly that, wanting to go legally after a number of independent conservative groups. You've had members of Congress on the Democratic side say the same thing. They're not making decisions at the IRS. They didn't order this, but we know that a number of top Democrats wanted exactly this to happen.
Sabrina, I want you to respond to that, because Mitt Romney had touched on this as a thorny issue that might have bedeviled him last fall more than he knew. This is from Romney a few minutes ago.
Infuriating. Look, I got to tell you, it's not fun to lose an election, but to hear that the government of the United States, and particularly an agency that has all the information about the American people, was using that power to help defeat me in one way or another is really quite upsetting, as you could imagine.
Now, we'll never know, Sabrina, whether it turned the election tide. Of course, the governor dismissed that and said he lost it on his own and this wouldn't have made a difference. But a lot of people in some of those states that were very, very close, that right. it could have swung. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it is hard to know if it would have had a direct impact on November's election. But what's for sure is that the Tea Party, these Tea Party groups did have a big impact in helping Republicans win in the 2010 midterm elections. And certainly Democrats are thinking ahead to the 2014 midterm elections and wanting to help start muzzling these conservative voices. So I think that the governor was certainly right to point that this is clearly politically motivated.
You know, Byron, switching gears a little bit, if you don't mind, just the confab that the governor was arranging in Utah today that included the likes of Chris Christie and Rand Paul and Paul Ryan, all presidential prospects in their own right. Obviously, whatever perceived bygones were there with Governor Christie, and the governor pointed out, never with him. I think there might be some dispute whether that applied to his entire family, that everything's copacetic. Do you think it is?
Yeah, I do. I think Romney has never actually complained very much or at all about Christie's behavior in the Sandy
Do you think
matter.
That made a difference, though, Byron? Do you think that the timing of it did? We do know from polls that it arrested it stopped the president's slide. It did do that.
Well, Romney always had a feeling from his pollsters that I think that he was doing a little better than he actually was.
Right.
His staff told me at midnight on election night that it was the hurricane that had really stopped their momentum. But there were bigger structural problems with the Romney campaign, with the way people viewed Romney.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the hurricane made the deciding difference in that campaign.
Sabrina?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that this is the problem with polling, and this is why this particular CBS New York Times poll gave me some pause. At some level, I don't care what people think. I care how they behave. And I think that's something that the Romney campaign maybe didn't pay quite enough attention to. People may say that they like you, but what really matters is what happens on voting day.
Well, that's very true. Thank you guys very much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, here's what's weird. Jobs really weren't